Hello, I'm so super excited to have this conversation with Miss Heather. And Heather, how do you say your last name?
Nardi.
Nardi. Okay, I thought that that's how, but then I'm like, I suck at saying names. So I usually like chop them all up. So today we're going to be talking to Heather Nardi, Empath Mama. Like I just was like, I literally want to be like, Empath Mama. But like, when I like saw it on your website, Heather is an author and speaker certified in holistic certified as a holistic life coach. She draws from her extensive education as a coach and spiritual practitioner to create specialized tools and programs for empaths and highly sensitive mamas. And I have to say, until I had a client that referred to herself as it's HSP, highly sensitive person.
Right.
I had no idea what she was talking about. Like, and then she's like, well, Sarah, more than likely you are as well. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I'm learning. And Heather is the founder of Empath Mama, a community that provides loving guidance and support for mamas who are sensitive souls. She is a mama of 2 humans, a 20-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and 1 non-human. Is it a dog, cat?
A dog.
Like, and married to Mario for 20 years. Yay! You're with the same man for 20 years now. Nowadays, I feel like I'm 83, but that's like 20 years. Woo, yeah. That's awesome. Oh, so you got married in 2001? Yeah. Is that what that was?
Yeah,
2000
actually, because
because you
yeah.
Well, that's fun. Then I mean, you got to have a wild and crazy party for your 20th anniversary.
Right. Actually, it wasn't too wild and crazy, but
I know. I was just kidding because of COVID and stuff.
I know. Yeah.
All right.
Had people at our
Would you say, hun?
I said we actually had people at our event and could, hug and touch them. So
Oh,
yes.
well, that's awesome. All right. So as I was stalking your website and trying to get a feel for you, because I don't know you, because like we connected through Spiritual Communities Network, right?
Yes.
All right. And so when I was looking at your website, I was like, she must have had some sort of intuitive hit or nudge or divine guidance download or whatever you're going to call it, from moving from stay-at-home mama to now, like, I'm using my voice. I got something to say. So tell me all about it. I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, and we know each other through Fem Cities. So the name.
That's right. Yes.
So the name came from Violet, who, is the founder of Fem City.
Yeah.
I was doing a coaching session with her, and I was like, because I had been coaching people individually. And I'm like, I'm more of a community person. Like I like individual, but I like being in a space of community. And she's talking to me and she's like, you're like an empath mama. And I'm like, oh, let's use that. Like, so that's how the name came to be. And that was about 1.5 years ago. And it felt so in alignment. Like I've tried different names, different things, and I finally felt so in alignment, and it was just felt so true to me of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it did come about. I was a stay-at-home mom that worked part-time just because I needed to get out of the home. So when my daughter, who's 20, was around 2, I started to, do some part-time work. But really why I started to do my own business, which started probably 7 years ago. I was doing coaching more, the holistic life coaching. But why I got to that point and then brought me to Empath Mama was inspiration from my daughter. So when she was 8 years old, she was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And she was always one of those kids that was very anxious. And her behavior started to show as more aggression and school avoidance. And so we didn't know what to do as a family. So we brought her in, she got diagnosed. And I'll keep the story short, but from 8 to 14, she was in the mental health system, diagnosed many things.
I know that I'm like interrupting, but I just have to say, did it have anything, like, was it not actually anxiety? Could she like feel and touch, or like, yeah, okay. Which I like totally didn't complete my thought.
Yeah.
So people are going to be listening, like y'all are going to be listening and be like,
yeah, because and I just got the chills on that. So
yeah.
8 to 14 in the system, ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, depression when she became 12, and then suicidal ideation. And we had to put her in a facility for about 6 months for her safety and for our family's safety. And then when she came home from that, well, when she was there for 6 months away, I finally focused in on me because I was so into what I needed to do for her.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to learn more about who I was.
Yes.
And I was starting like—
I'm looking for a Kleenex.
Oh,
I'm feeling all the feels. Keep on talking.
The feels coming on. I have all the feels. I always say that. So I was working on me. I have a son too, who he was very young at the time. So trying to protect him from some of the stuff he was seeing. But I was working on me, and I started to study self-love, and I was in all these programs, and things started to unfold for me. And I was kind of discovering who I was. And I knew I was sensitive, but I didn't know what that really meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she came home, I think she felt a shift in me. I had, like a higher vibration. I moved myself into a higher space of love for myself. So when she came home, I think she could feel that shift too. And at the time I was in another women's networking group, not Fem City. And a woman came to the meeting, and she was a medium. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And I had never seen a person like that before. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I want to go talk to her. I was at the point where we didn't know what to do with our child. I would have done anything because I was seeing her struggle so much. So we went to see this medium. So I had that nudge, and this person was at my meeting I was leading for some reason, right? Mm-hmm. She happened to be there, and it was for me, I'm sure. I'm getting the chills.
I did too. I got all the goods. I'm like, I just shed my legs. Well, who cares about that now?
So when we're talking about divine guidance, I believe that was divine guidance for me. And then I didn't question it. I just went and brought my daughter to see this woman. And during our session, she had Archangel Michael come forward and say, this child should not be on medication, that she is very gifted, and that she is a bright light, and all these amazing things that I didn't understand. Mm-hmm. But what I did take away from that was she should not be on medication. And my daughter had been requesting to get off because it was numbing her. So we did that safely with the help of a doctor. Mm-hmm. And she's been off since the age of 14. Now she's 20, almost 21, living a completely different life. She still has some issues with anxiety and depression at times, but we now understand her to be an empath. So somebody that can really feel the energy of others. So as a young 8-year-old in a classroom, I believe that's where her anxiety was coming from.
It would be hell.
Right?
And not knowing how to express that.
Yeah, she couldn't express it. She had stomach aches, headaches. These are usually symptoms of children trying to tell you that they can feel that. Yeah, that energy, because they can't use the words to tell you what that feeling is, but they know you'll understand that, like an illness or a sickness. So
I got tears because all of my childhood, I had a stomach ache. I mean, for as long as I can remember, like debilitating, like it would, like I would eat anything. And I realized it was around certain people. And I didn't realize that until I was 28 or 29, and I had not been around certain people for a while. And then I got around them, and I started feeling horrible, like not being able to eat, having to lay down, all the things. And then every time a message would come through, I didn't know it at the time. I was just starting to wake up at like 28, 29. So like it was around all that age time frame. and I would get messages and I would get this sharp pain like right up through my belly, like basically like the third chakra area. And as soon as I would deliver the message, the pain would go away. Since then, I've asked Spirit to give me the messages in other ways.
Yeah.
You know, or notify me that there's a message coming through. Now I just feel, and it's completely different, but and I just hear basically. But
Yes.
yeah, the stomach aches have gone away, and I mean, so when you said it hit home. So
Totally understand, right? That
yeah.
is, so if others are experiencing that, this is why I feel like this is my journey. I feel some children are misdiagnosed because they are highly sensitive or empaths. Some are not. So I don't believe to just take your child off of medication. It is something you have to do safely, and you know, it's your decision. But I felt that nudge and that call and that divine guidance to do that. And people sometimes are like, wow, you just did that, like without question. And I did. And that's when we talk about divine guidance, it was just not questioning that direction, which I received a message.
I think it is also brave of you. I have been in this position, so that's why I think it's brave, is when you're leading a meeting. So you have a certain persona and energy of leading, and then someone comes in and has a message for you. And as is an empath, highly sensitive, intuitive, what insert describing word here, you know, but then you have to let the ego step aside in order to receive it. And it's like this balancing act. So I think that was super brave of you to, okay, I have to lead the meeting, but I also need to speak with this woman because I feel like I need to do that. You know, like it's calling me. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
Because I work with many corporate leaders and or business owners who make multi-six figures, work with C-suite individuals. And so, and I'm married to a CIO. So it's like, who's also an empath. So, and so it's like, when you are in that leadership role and you are feeling, there's this pull between, do I step forward and continue being this leader because I know that it's going to have me be vulnerable if I truly receive what I know is in me and who I really am, and I step forward with who I really am, and can I be a leader and be who I really am? So there's this, like, even if it was just a meeting, but there's that pull between. So I just thought that was brave of you to set that aside and then follow that nudge.
And I think for me, and I lead, you know, a group of women, and what I found, and I had before Fem City, I led a different one for 4 years. And when people would come up to me and say, I love your meetings, you do an amazing job. And I think as someone who is highly sensitive or an empath, I could read the room and know what others need. So I think it's not taking advantage, but just owning that in you. You can really see things from a different perspective, or see who needs what in the room, or shifting, if you can, kind of shift the energy and, you know, work that way of your knowing. So for those that are executives, I think they can get to a space that way.
And there's a fine line between, you have to really be conscious of doing it with the intention of love and the betterment of all, because there's a fine line between manipulating the energy to make things go your way, because when you are aware that you can do these things, it's very easy to sway. And so, but when you come from a space of love and the intention that's best for all, it ends up being the best for all because that's the intention. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
What else is going to, so where did you go from there once your daughter and you had this a reawakening. And how is she now? I mean, does she know she has gifts? Is
Yes.
she like, how does she deal with them? Or have you guys set up some sort of routine or self-care or anything like that?
Yes. So she was young, like 14. And so that was, it just, that was a challenge for her to accept what that meant. But when she was going off of her medication, what was happening was a lot of dark energy was coming in. So she was scared. So she was hearing voices and seeing things that were dark. And more women were coming to me that were divinely guided, of course. Like I had a healer that came in and was guiding how we should help her protect herself and, use her voice to ask them to leave her. So she ended up with some amazing tools. So her and I were learning together what this gift meant. And I don't have it to the extent she does. I mean, she could hear, she could see masses. She has it differently. And now I'm wondering, as she's getting older, if she's shutting it down a little bit, because she doesn't want it. And she's started to have other things like panic attacks and things. So
Yeah,
I think that can happen. Like I don't now. It was kind of interesting and new, and I was trying to understand it, but now I'm like, no, I don't really want it.
I went through that. But the thing is it doesn't go away.
Yes, it's gonna keep.
And until she owns it and truly starts living it, it's like, I don't know how to say this because I don't want to because it's your daughter, but from my own experience, thought I was weird. I thought it was crazy. I didn't want to be the one that stood out. I didn't want to be the one who was different.
Right.
But Spirit God made me that way. I was 5'9" at age 10. So I stood out physically, and I thought differently. And I came to parents who were 42 and 45 when they had me. And so I stood out in so many different ways that I had to be seen. And Spirit made me be that way. And I ignored my gifts. I actually tried to shut them off. If you can guide her to not do that it was horrible. And it drove me to a suicide attempt. So that's because it's like your soul. And then
and trying to shut that down.
Yeah. And I always view a person, we're a whole being. So we are mind, body, and soul. And yes, I know most people know that. I didn't realize that though. Growing up around my 20s, when I went off to college, I was very focused on my body. And I had no idea about my spirituality or my soul or anything like that, or even the power of my mind. And then when I started to wake up, I was all spirit. And I was like, why do I need this body? I could be dead and still having a really great time. I was like, whatever. And so then I got disconnected from my body. Then at that same time, I was still power of the mind. Yay. I was learning all about power of thought. Then my brother-in-law passed away in June. And I realized that I can't do the things that I'm here to do without this body. And so I started appreciating my body. And that's when I'm we have to be a whole being. Without our minds, we're dead. Without our souls, we're dead. Without our bodies, we're dead. I need to be truly alive. And that's when Spirit gave me the question in December then is are you done suffering? And are you dedicated to living? And so I'm yeah, I like that, so living as a whole being.
I like that too.
So I hope that she can.
Yeah, I think that she will. I feel it. And I feel it slowly too coming. I think there's trauma from the mental illness stuff that she had to experience too, that she has to deal with, that we're trying to help her there. So she's what I tell my husband is she's happy. And when I hear her laugh and when I see her happy, it I know she's okay, because we have struggled with thoughts of suicide. So knowing that, and knowing she is safe is, because there were times where she was really young, like maybe 12, 13, she told me she'd probably be homeless. She pictured that, or she didn't think she'd be old enough. She never thought she'd graduate high school. She thought she would not survive. So when you live with that, you are happy for small things, right?
I always told, I was married before, so I always told my ex-husband, you better learn how to do the laundry, because I'm not going to be here. I am going to die in a car accident. So you better like learn how to take care of the house. And I didn't realize. And then it was about a year or two after that I left, and it was because my soul was dying.
Wow.
And so when I realized that, I was like, holy shazbot, I need to truly live. And I have a lot of living to do. I just need to figure out how to do that. And then I got connected with The Secret, the book, The Secret. And I read it, and I was laying on the sofa, and he was back over here. And I was like, I can create my whole life. What? Like, I can live however I want to live. Screw this.
I'm out, right?
Peace. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, your story is just like making me recall, and I didn't mean to like.
Well, no, I'm sure this is helping others that can relate.
So how does it feel for you when you get nudges of divine wisdom, inner wisdom, whatever? What do you refer to it as?
I say inner wisdom.
Okay. Awesome.
Or I've said guidance. I don't know. I say many things, but I think we all mean the same, right?
I think it all means the same, but it also helps. Like, I say divine guidance because that's what Spirit told me to call it. But it also helps because other people have other words that mean the same thing. So that's why I ask. So you
I say inner wisdom a lot. Yes. For me, I think I've used it and had it for so long, even as a young child, that that was a hard question for me to think of. But what I do know is it's light, and it's I can just feel it as not being like a heavy, like I can almost feel it in my body, like it's a light feeling, and I just have this relaxed sensation. And when it's not, maybe I have this, like my shoulders even go down, and like it's a heavy feeling. So I know that it in my body, I can feel it differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. That's how I started. And that's what I teach now is, if it's light, it's right. If it's heavy, it's no. And I almost feel my body when I was starting, if it was light, the yes. So I started asking questions that were yes or no's. And the yeses were almost pulling me forward. And then the no's would almost pull me back. But I would just pay attention because I knew that it was in me. I just didn't know how to express it, or I didn't know that I could listen, because I'm audio. I mean, it literally is like someone is talking with me, and it's like right here, and it's just like blah 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 blah. I mean, it's a completely different voice than my own thoughts. And so anyway, so that's how I started. So I totally get what you're saying about the body feels. So earlier you received some goosebumps as you were talking. What does goosebumps signify to you?
That is truth. Or like you're right on, And usually it's a sign from, I don't know, angels or divine or whoever, that that is the truth.
I like it. What has happened if you have received information but you don't act on it? Like, what's that like? Yeah. I say like this because I have done that. So
I do it around people. So I see everyone as good, and there's not good and bad. It's just the situation, or so. But when I say it, I see like light in everyone until I learn them or be around some people, and then I'm like, this is not right. So there's been situations, and my healer even says that. She's like, you see the light. She goes, I see the dark first. Which I think is an empath thing. We tend to have people gravitate towards us and want to be in our space. But what I do is I will jump into friendships, relationships with people, or what has happened. I did some things with business that I'm like, oh, they're telling me what I want to hear. And that sounds amazing. And they're cool. And I want to work with them. And I don't, if I jump in and I don't think about it, I can get into trouble. So I don't listen in to my, my guidance or inner wisdom to see if it's a good fit or not. So I'm just jumping in because whatever they're telling me sounds amazing. Then later on, I finally see some true colors, and then I get in that icky situations that I shouldn't have probably been in. And so that has happened. It's mainly around people that I see that.
I agree with what you're sharing because I have found myself in tricky situations. I've now learned to check in all the time. Like, even if someone comes to me and wants to work with me, I'm like, Spirit, am I supposed to be working with them? I mean, even though it's like, they're like, here's money. And I'm like, sure. But I'm like, am I supposed to be working with them? Like, cause if they're not a divine assignment, I know that it's going to be a heck of a ride. And so I'm like, am I supposed to be working with them? How am I supposed to be working with them? Like, what's going on? I just keep asking more questions, but I used to not do that. And I've also gotten myself into trouble because I see their soul. Like, I feel it, I see it. And it's like, I see all the goodness and who they really are. And then they're not aligned with it. And I'm like, get there already. Like, what is going on? And then I like become impatient, and they're like, oh, you just don't understand. And I'm like, no, I don't. Just zip it up and go to the, we don't have to suffer all the time. Let's go. Let's do this. Like, my example would be with my husband. I would be like, why are you being a jackass when you are clearly this amazing man? Like, what is going on? He's like, I'm working through stuff. I was like, work through it faster, damn it. So I have gotten myself in trouble with seeing so much goodness in another person, and then my expectations go to all of that goodness. So when you say that, I'm like, I hear you.
Yes.
What happens when you do listen to your divine guidance or your inner wisdom?
That is when I feel like there's that synchronicity, like the right people are coming in and I'm just in flow, like things are just happening, and it doesn't feel hard, right? It just feels right. Yeah. So if you're struggling and pushing and like all those hard words, I feel like then it's just not because that's how I felt when I had the wrong people in my life. I'd have like stomach aches. Oh, I don't want to talk to them, or, and it was like, then I was eventually it comes to me where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to hear that this is not the right thing for me. It takes me a while. But when I am and I have the right people, it's so easy, or the right things come to me, or it's just beautiful and easy.
Yeah. So often we think that things have to be hard. That's one of the beliefs and thoughts and stories that I chat with people about, is like, no, it's like, that's a thought that we're taught. And listening to our inner wisdom is the most effective and efficient way to make decisions. And so no matter what decision you're making, checking in and just getting a heck yeah, or a get out of the way, or whatever whatever it is so helpful, effective, and efficient. How so many people ask me, well, Sarah, how do you know the difference between a thought that you're thinking and a thought that you're receiving? How do you tell the difference?
That one, I have to be quiet. Often you have to be quiet to hear it. I hear it, and it's hard to explain because it's not my voice, or it's just a thought, or, I hear it. It's, or a nudge or a word, but and it's the word I just said. Let me fix that. If I say I feel, then I know it's guidance. If I say I think, then it's usually not. And that's for me. So if like, I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to work with Joe. or I say, oh, I really feel called to, or I feel like it would be a good fit, then I know it's not, it's the guidance piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I have to be quiet to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so often we're rushing. And that's when I jump in. Like I got an email. Oh, they sound cool. They want to talk. I'll talk with them. Oh, they have a great program. So I'm just not slowing down.
Mm-hmm. I was part of a mastermind, and we got together for years and had amazing conversations. And one of the gals says to me towards the end of my time in that group, I want you to not be spiritual Sarah. I just want you to show up as Sarah. And I don't want you to check in every time you go to answer something. And I knew my time was done, and I knew my time was done with that group months before, but I have a thing about not hurting anybody. So that's a thing that I work through. And I was like, but that's me. Like, I have to check in. Like, that's literally how I function. Like you're literally being like, don't be you. I don't want you. Like, well, then you don't want me. Then it's like when people ask me to give presentations and they want me to talk about calculating the business strategy of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I talk about how to listen to divine guidance. Then you don't want me, you want somebody else. Because tuning in and getting, okay, am I to be working with this person? What am I to be sharing? It's for the benefit of all, because I come from a space of love. Do you feel the same? Or what are your thoughts on?
Oh, I totally feel the same. Yes. Yeah.
What, hon?
I was going to just say that's the intention. And I think that I'm in that space. When you're in that space, or if you live in that space, I don't really have to think about being in that space of love. Like I'm just there.
Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start thinking about it, you're like, oh, I'm not there.
Yeah, then but there's times I'm not. I can feel it. Like when I start judging or something, I'm like, oh girl, you gotta come back. You're not in your, yeah.
So as an empath mama and you're supporting other mamas, how are you helping them step into their sensitive skills, gifts? I'm not sure what word to say.
Yeah, I know people say gift, and then I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a better term. Highly sensitive person is an actual trait that you're born with, which has been proven by a psychologist, Dr. Elaine Aron. Empath can be kind of, I don't know if it's an actual trait. So I say gift because it's just easier to explain to people. But what I've been doing is kind of what I found to be helpful to me is when the mom comes to a place of acceptance and understanding of who they are as an empath or highly sensitive person, they're better able to support their child because one of their children probably is as well. Because I didn't know who I was kind of pushing down my daughter and not accepting her truth. And her anxiety, part of her anxiety, I think, came through as me trying to push her as to be a normal child, like push her into things that she didn't want to do, but I thought that's what she should do, or not wanting her to be like me. So when we can come to, as a mom, a place of acceptance and learn how to handle, cope with who we are, then we can, help our child and be a great example for our children. And when you are an empath mama, you are feeling everything amplified. So it's supporting moms too, when they're like, I can't handle whatever they are experiencing with their child. It's because we're experiencing it all so much at a different, higher level. Sound, when they're whining, everything's just so much more for us. So there's a lot of talk about self-care, boundaries, all of that too. What we're creating right now is a membership platform coming in March. So I want to have different experts coming in to share, because I say I'm experienced, but I'm not an expert in all areas. So supporting the mom and everything, like parenting, relationships, finance, but all through the lens of being an empath, everything. So still putting that out together, but that's it. Just supporting you through that, through everything, really.
Mm-hmm. I love it. People would always ask me, why do you do what you do? And I was always like, and I even have like a sign over the toilet. Like it was like, remember your why or something like this. And I'm like, why? I mean, Spirit told me to be this way. I am this way. Until I was having a conversation with a neighbor, and I'm like, I just want people to know that they're supported and that they're never alone. And I was so like adamant about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably why. I was like, if I'm really that passionate about it, then that's probably my why. So I love that you're supporting.
That's exactly right.
Do you find that as people are stepping into who they are and understanding who they are, that they may feel like they've been alone for years or their whole life?
Yeah, a lot of women when they're coming in are like, I finally found my people, or like, I have felt so alone and no one understands me, or maybe they haven't even wanted to show pieces of them, who they are, because they don't know how it's going to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Because too, there's the spiritual side. A lot of us have some kind of gift as well, besides just being but besides being an empath, there's other things that come along with that, like my daughter, so there's those other gifts, right? Or experiences. So supporting them and knowing that, and there's no judgment. I think they can be authentic to who they are. And that's what I want. Like, no one should hide, or because that's creating so much more illness in your body and all those other things, because you're not, like you experience, you're not being who you truly are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I want, because man, when I wasn't living my authentic self, it's just not good for anybody.
So what would be your advice, or what would be your advice for someone who is trying to have the courage to be themselves?
Yeah, that's, what I did was a lot of journaling, journaling my thoughts out. And if you can find somebody that you trust, and totally would welcome anyone in our community, but someone that you can trust, and maybe share a little bit and see how it's taken. You could really be surprised by people and how they react.
Mm-hmm.
But the first place I really went, like, I searched self-love and what did that really mean? I mean, you hear that word a lot and quite often right now, but it is truly so important.
Mm-hmm.
We're told who to be when we're raised. Our parents are like, you're going to be, you're in sports, or maybe that's not what you want. So often we're created into this being and we don't know who we are. So slowly kind of,
that is a horrible trick that life plays on. Because
right?
as a soul without the body, we know who we are. And then we jump into this body and then we're like, I don't know who I am. Let's figure it out. Like, what a horrible trick. And then especially those who are like reincarnated and they like are remembering this other life. And then I may have just watched Surviving Death. So I may
I want to watch
have this. I may have this like thoughts that I'm like, whoa, this exists. This whole other thing. I have no idea. I don't even know where I was going with that, but anyways.
That is so true though. You are like, that's what I was doing to my daughter, was trying to create her into who I thought she should be. And that was bad because that made her even more anxious. And,
I know.
So
my oldest daughter, she's 7, and I always thought that it would be cool for us to have some sort of spiritual connection. And she does, but no, like she is more science minded. She's very prove it to me. engineer mind, like the way that, and my husband is that way. I mean, like the way that they think and put things together. I mean, when my husband first lined up our rug on the hardwood floors, I was like, I never even saw that there was line on the hardwood floor, let alone like line it up in a perpendicular manner. I was like, whoa, your mind works completely different than mine. And then as I'm watching Amira problem solve, I'm like, wow, like I don't think that way. And that's super cool. So for me to want her to be this spiritual woo-woo would be horrible for her, because she's like, that's not how I work. That's not why I came here. And then there's Joy, who is 2.5, and we're basically twinsies. And I'm like, I'm sorry, girlfriend. Like, I don't know what to do with this, but I feel you, and she feels me, and like we are super connected. Like I have been letting go of anger this week that was inherited, and I didn't realize it, and then I did. And so I'm like, how many freaking layers are there? Can we just be done with this already? And so I was letting it go, and then I was having like liver like funkiness. Well, her toe, the toe that is connected to the liver, is like all jacked up, and like it had cracked. It's all black and blue. We're like, shit, she's got COVID toe, like, and it's not. And she's looking at, and I was like, can we not be disconnected? Like, that's perfectly fine. She does not have to feel this. Like, it's this is my stuff. But then I'm like, well, shit, did I like pass it on down to her? And now she's like trying to get it out of her body. All the things
that is
empath mamas.
That is so true. That's exactly, because my daughter and I are so connected too. Yeah. Like she'll be like, Mom, you need to calm down. I can feel you. I'm like, okay. So she can call it out now that she's old enough to be able to speak it, and tell me. Yeah.
And that probably helps though too, because so my youngest was my mama in a former life. And so you should see her try to tell me what to do. She will get the finger going, and she will get the hands, and she will tell me. And then her older sister was picking on her the other day, and Joy just walked up to her and stood there. I mean, just like a mama. And she stood there and she looked at her, and then swap, like across the head. And Amira was like, oh my God, Joy, that really hurt. And Joy just looked at her and was like, no, like she is not taking. And I'm like, she's 2.5, and she just scolded her. Like, like, I am the mama of this household. Don't you mess with me. And I'm like, girlfriend, in this lifetime, I'm the mama. So we're going to have to work on this.
Yes. Yes. At least you have that awareness, right? If you didn't know, you'd be like, what is up with this child?
I know. Well, both of the girls came to me as souls before they came into their physical bodies, and they named themselves. And Amira stuck around for 3 years, and that was when I was just waking up. So she came to me July, August, somewhere around there of 2010. And I was just on the couch searching for jobs, because I had just quit my entire life and moved down to Florida to start my new life with Craig. And I was like total crazy. And I was very much like, I have a master's, I work for government. This is who I am. I must find it. And then I move, and I just became Sarah, and I was trying to find myself. And so I was on the couch searching for jobs, and all of a sudden this soul comes in, and she's like, hey, mama. And I'm like, why? What the heck is this? Hey, just call me Amira Naomi. I'll come whenever you and daddy are ready. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So I didn't tell Craig. And then like a few months later, I was at a conference, and he was at a conference, but it was 2 different. I flew in, and I met him at his, and we were sitting there by the elevators. He's like, so while you're gone, I had a dream, and there's this little girl, and she described her, although how she came to us in the dreams is not how she looks now. So we're like, did we get the wrong one? What happened? Like, it's okay. We still love her though. But she came in, and she anyways, came into his dream and was just so full of love and was hugging him and calling him daddy. And he's like, and she's like, you can call me Amira Naomi. And so he was like, so I know you're going to think I'm crazy. Like he's at an IT conference.
Wow.
Like, and he's like, so I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I got to talk to you about something. And I was like, oh, it's a little girl that came to you. Like, and like, and then I described her and he's like, oh, how do you know this? And I'm like, she came to me a few months ago. He's like, you didn't tell me. And I'm like, I thought you'd think I'm weird. That was still when I'm like, I don't want to be weird phase.
Yes. Yes.
And now I'm totally weird. So, but
Well,
yeah,
I feel like I'm owning it, right? Oh,
yeah. I mean, did your
wow.
children come to you beforehand or how was that?
Well, Ellie, and because I'm writing a book and it's in there, Ellie, I was trying to not get pregnant and we were not married and I got pregnant.
She's like, I'm coming through.
She was wanting to be here. And so I say that too, like, okay, came to me for a reason and I was not really ready, but that is how it happened. And I wasn't like super young. I was 25. So, and we were talking about getting married. So it wasn't like, too crazy. And then when we wanted a child, we struggled to have a second child. So there's 6 years difference between the two. And then we had to seek out help to have him. Mm-hmm. And then I got pregnant right away when we had some divine intervention, really, some other outside help with that. But then, so I know she was meant to come to me. And part of it is funny because him and I were out somewhere and I'm like, oh, look at that cute little girl. I want a baby girl. And I'm like, oh, I put it out there, didn't I? I didn't know that that's what I was doing.
So I know this is recording and people are going to hear this. So I don't know if I should say this or not. Yes, I'm supposed to say this. Okay. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So Craig and I joke like we would watch Parks and Rec. And the scene that she's finding out that she has, and I can't remember she's name. It's the main character, blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm horrible at names. Again, Nardi, I didn't know how to say your last name. So anyway, so she is, they're getting like the sonogram or ultrasound, whatever that's called. And the doctor's like, you're pregnant with triplets. And she's like, what? And the doctor's like, well, it's kind of a going out of business sale based on your age, you know? And Craig and I, the first time I saw that scene, I was laughing so hard. I used to be a Parks and Rec director. And so I don't ever watch Parks and Rec because I'm like, it's too real. Like I would sit through meetings over football gear. So I was like, I can't do this. And so I saw that scene and I just laugh and laugh and laugh. And then I was speaking with a spiritual friend beginning of the year. And she's like, I mean, I can only give you like 2 things. I mean, you're going to have a really awesome year. You're right on track. It's a power year and you're going to have twins. And Craig was like sitting next to me and I'm like, do you know I'm going to be 40 this year? And I'm like, she's like, oh, that doesn't matter. And I'm like, have you seen my body? Like, I was like, twins? Like, are you sure about this? And I turned to Craig and I was like, it's because we joked with Parks and Rec. It's because we laughed at the scene. Like, and we both were like, God, that would be horrible to have multiples.
Right.
Like, I'm like, this is why. This is why it's happening. So to be continued. We'll let you know.
What's up?
If it happens, it happens. And I mean, and Craig's like, if it happens, it happens. We know how it happens. Like, right. We can do something to not make it happen.
Well, maybe not. It still happens.
And that's how both girls, like, I mean, Joy literally was like, came through 1 month. The pregnancy didn't take, I mean, for whatever reason. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, I still feel her hanging around. And she's like, yep, still here whenever you want. That didn't work out. Let's try again. Like, let's go. And so I waited until like my body was ready. And literally Craig and I had sexy time. And I was like laying there and I'm like, yep, I'm pregnant. And he's like, how do you, I'm like, right. I know, like literally I can feel like this is happening. And she came like it was October-ish. And then she came in in June. So that was that. I was like, oh my God. So if the two little souls are or one, why did I just say two? Oh my God.
Oh,
and this is all being recorded. So there you go. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, and again, going back to listening to my own divine guidance, even stuff like that I'm like, how could I be ready? What's going on? Like, I have all the questions. So I'm human, even though I'm able to listen and I tune in, I'm still like, what the heck? Like, he's going to be 46. I'm 40. Like, by the time, if they count, I'm like, oh my God, like, what the world? But yet I've learned that if it's supposed to be, it's going to be. And like, no matter how much, especially with the vibration I am at, I think that also matters, like us being able to create things and deny things. Like, it's like, I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, when you're at a certain vibration, I don't really even know how to explain it, but I know before, when I wasn't as conscious, it would take a bit for me to manifest something. And it's literally now, like, I think about it and bam, like it's immediate. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you do it? Is there like a scientific reasoning behind this that I'm just yammering on?
Well, I think it's you're at a higher vibration, so your receiving is just quicker. I don't know how to, I don't know the scientific either.
I'm just like talking. So awesome. Well, anything else? How can we connect with you? Do you want to share anything else with us?
No, I mean, there could be lots to share, but that could be for another time.
Awesome.
So I would just say, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, we have the website empathmama.com. Everything's really that. So we have a Facebook page, Empath Mama, a community. It's Empath Mama group is the community, and there too.
Is that on Facebook or no?
That's on Facebook. So that's free. Just join in onto that space. So again, that would be Empath Mama group is what that's called. And I do support in there for, just to offer to the community. I'm sure like you do with your community too, Sarah. Like, and then coming more into March, we'll do a paid membership. So that'll be coming soon. Email is hello@empathmama.com. Everything's that. I feel that's
like great branding. Woohoo!
Yeah. And so less is still coming, but that's really, really what I want to do is just support you as a whole, as a mama that experiences life differently. And the reason for it was the whole journey with my daughter. So that's where
I hope her journey keeps getting easier and better and more fulfilling. And so for you as well, and your son and your husband, I just hope for the very best. And just life is just so delicious.
Right? You never know what you're going to have happen.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today and sharing your story. And I look forward to continue connecting with you.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.